Hey everyone, it's good to see you again. There's just been so much going on with me right now, and making these videos is a lot for one guy to handle. But during this break, I was playing some Mega Man 3, and I was just thinking, why am I here in this world? What's my goal? How do I get through this part? And what is Dr. Light talking about when he says energy crystals? What does all this mean? And why does this game not come with a manual to help me? It just makes me think back to when I was a kid, and I would have a manual to look at for these kinds of situations, but I wouldn't take advantage of them. And now, we hardly ever see them. The only video game manual I have gotten this past year was for Hollow Knight on the Nintendo Switch at a Best Buy. And I had absolutely no idea this game had a manual in it, because I just was looking through the store, and I saw it, and I thought, hey, look at that! A physical version of what I thought was only a digital game. And then I opened it up and I was like, holy crap, there's a manual in here too? That's a nice little gesture. So, why do video games not have manuals like they used to? Well, there are the obvious reasons. Manuals use paper, printers, and ink. Paper, printers, and ink cost money. In addition, manuals need to be made by writers and artists. So, businesses don't like to spend money unless it will make them more money, and will cut as many corners as possible to do so. As much as I see video game companies as people who really care about making a quality product over how much it costs, they are still companies at the end of the day. And the people who are in charge of the money in the video game companies, their job is to increase profits as much as possible, sometimes no matter what. So it just got me thinking, how come Team Cherry, a video game developer made up of not nearly as many people or dollars as Nintendo, decided to partner with a small publisher in Fangamer to put a manual inside their game, and Nintendo just put song lyrics to Jump Up Superstar and Super Mario Odyssey, something that you can easily look up online. Heck, the manual for Hollow Knight isn't anything super fancy, but it's the thought that counts. Now don't get me wrong, I love Nintendo. They are consistently finding creative ways for us to consume and experience video games. So you would think that they would be willing to put in the extra effort of making just a small manual with a little story, maybe a control guide, and some cool art. Nope, you're getting the song lyrics. And don't tell me this would cost you too much money, Nintendo, because it is so rare for any of your games to go under $60. Plus, you have been publishing so many Wii U games over the past 5 years, and while yes, I understand that that does cost money and effort to port over a video game like that, you are making so much more profit off of a port like that, rather than making an original game or remaking a game from scratch. Anyways, I would say around 2012 is when we started to see the decline in the video game manual, because before that, almost every single video game had a manual with it, especially the ones all the way back in the 1980s. Almost all video games did not have a tutorial like modern day ones, so you had to look up the manual to understand what the heck was going on. Now, some video games are pretty simple in their control schemes, like Super Mario Bros., along with many other platformers from then to now. But then you try to play Sonic Advance 2 blind, and you have this part with a giant falling pit that I had absolutely no idea how to get past, until I looked it up online and saw this person jump up in midair, and funny enough, the manual has a huge list of new controls Sonic does in this series. And this is not the first time I had a problem like this, because Nintendo has their subscription service, NSO, or Nintendo Switch Online, where you can play a giant catalog of so many classics. But something that really pissed me off was I didn't know everything the games wanted me to know, because there were no digital manuals along with any of these games. So how was I supposed to know you can star punch and punch out with the start button, or get back some health with the select button in between rounds? How was I supposed to know you can pick up and throw turtle shells in Super Mario Bros. 3, or that in Double Dragon you have to hit A and B at the same time to jump? The Legend of Zelda straight up asked you to look at the manual to play it, and I had to look up the manual online to even get started or understand what was going on. And modern games are just as bad as this sometimes. I mean, take Super Smash Bros. Brawl back in 2008. It had a huge packet that came alongside it with all of the moves of every single player. And now we jump to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate in 2018, and you have to go digging through so many menus to understand what is going on. I mean, I think they need a college course for all this crap. Plus, these manuals have so many different stories to tell. The Spyro and Crash Bandicoot trilogies are all great games, and even though their stories are simple, not all of it is explained in the cutscenes, and the only way to get this additional background story is in the original PlayStation 1 manuals. F-Zero has a comic book explaining its plot, which automatically gives the game so much more personality, since on the surface it can seem a bit bland. The Donkey Kong Country manuals have cute yet in-depth stories, along with Cranky Kong heckling you the entire time when you read it, which is hilarious. Even the simplest stories, like saving the people of Gradius, or the goofiest and stupidest ones, like saving the jolly folk of Beanville from Robotnik, still have their charm and worth. The reason I just went on that giant rant is because it concerns me that since these old school games are available for like the next generation, they won't know how to fully play these games, and it takes so much more time and effort to look them up. While it would be very simple for Nintendo, or maybe if they hired an outside company, to just have these manuals as like another option in the menus for these games when you're selecting them. So you know what I decided to do? I decided I was going to print the manuals myself, both for fun and for my full enjoyment of these stone cold classics. And this is how many I have so far. Not only being able to read all of these manuals, but also being able to hold them and think back to what gaming must have been like for my parents really makes me appreciate physical goods and full preservation of these games. That's why if we were to go on eBay right now and look at all of these games, they will specify if they are complete or not, because a lot of collectors and retro gamers want the complete and authentic versions of these games, because it brings them joy knowing where and when they came from, and they understand how important it is to have the complete, full package. The sad truth is, we may never get as many manuals as we used to. So many games today do not put in the time or effort for this, and instead they do have really good tutorials baked within the game, so you do not have to pause the game or read a booklet before playing. You just have to open the game and start playing, and the game will guide you along the way. And this isn't a bad thing. It's just so weird to me to think that manuals are now treated as a bonus when they were the standard for the first 4 or so decades of gaming as a whole. Let's just take a look at one of the manuals I have now that I think perfectly shows why video game manuals were essential back then and would be just really nice to have now. Kid Icarus. This game was released for the Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES, back in 1986. Right off the bat, we are introduced to the story and attached to this world. Because when you boot up the game, you start in a dark underworld, but before you were in the kingdom of Angel Land, living your best life. It was not until Palutena, the goddess of light, and Medusa, the goddess of darkness, started a war against each other, because Medusa was turning people into stone statues, so Palutena turned her into this thing as punishment. Medusa then took the 3 sacred treasures, which are the primary weapons you need to defeat Medusa in this game, and takes over Angel Land and all of its inhabitants. Palutena then reaches out to Pit, the main character you play as, asking him to break free from his prison, and then the narrator of the manual asks you if Pit is able to succeed in his journey to bring peace to his home. Again, none of this is explained in the actual game, because when you put in the game, it goes title, press start, and then you go. So to have this manual explain and build up the stakes of the story will automatically make this a better game. Because if you just boot up the game without reading this story or looking at the controls, which we're going to look at next, you are so much more likely to rage quit, get frustrated, or just be confused on what you're doing, rather than giving the game a proper shot. Now, onto the controls and how to play the game. This game featured the password pack back in the 80s, and while it is not essential to have this now when playing on the NSO version, since you can create a save state whenever you want, there were no memory cards or save data on these cartridges back then. It wasn't until The Legend of Zelda where cartridges started to get batteries in them so they could save, but saving was a bit clunky and not every single cartridge had them. So if you were playing this game back in the 80s on an NES cartridge, it was good to know that as long as you did not turn off your console, some of your progression is saved in your strength and health numbers. Next is the NES controller with all of the controls. You have to jump by pressing A, and to squat down or to go through the floor you press down. When you get the wings later on in the game, you have to press up or down in order to fly in that direction, along with the other essential functions. Everything else from the menus, the user interface, weapons, items, etc., all are explained for the next several pages, making sure that you understand what is going on. Then we move on to Angel Land itself, showing the 4 worlds we will travel, the 3 bosses we will face in each of them, and the checkpoints. The only way to get all the sacred treasures is by defeating these 3 bosses, but you will need to find items to upgrade yourself through various rooms and shops along the way. Every single item not only gets special little artwork, but will also show the sprite art as it will appear in the game, and an in-depth caption explaining how these items work. The same goes for characters like Pit and Medusa and all of these enemies, each of them with their own in-depth and well-thought-out bio. It's cool to see what the developers envision their game to be like in their heads, and to have them share it with us going into their own special world. This is why video games are such a good medium for storytelling, because what you do affects the outcome of the game, no matter how complex or simple the plot is. Finally, we have the Q&A. What's funny is that this is the only time I have ever seen a manual have something like this. Now, some of these questions are pretty dumb, obvious ones, but this one right here really stuck out to me. What can I expect when I win the game? That right there inspires the player to get better, because depending on how many requirements you meet, your ending will be different. They mostly boil down to how much you upgrade Pit on your journey, but it is important for the player to know that there is more for them to do, and to see in their game, especially if they beat it really quick. And that's it. Honestly, such a well done and thought out piece of work. Being able to understand the story and see what the sprites in the game look like via drawings, and knowing everything the game wants me to know in order to have a good time, is so important. Video game manuals do not need to tell you everything. That is what strategy guides are for, and if they did tell you everything, there wouldn't be any challenge or mystery or wanting to explore. And while games today do not need manuals, it is nice to know that there are people out there who understand why video games are so special and should still have manuals with them. Because you are making an investment when you purchase a video game, and to be able to have something physical come with the game, something that you own, something that will grow your sense of childlike wonder, something that will make sure you never forget how to properly play the game, goes a really long way. Thank you guys so much for watching, and let me know if you remember a video game manual that stuck out to you. I know this video took a really long time to make, but I've just really had a lot of personal stuff going on right now, and I don't want that to affect the outcome of these videos. I'm a person that doesn't need to make a video every single week or every 2 weeks or every day or anything like that. I'm always going to make sure that these videos are good enough for me and good enough for you. That is always going to be more important to me than how often I come out with a video. And as always, I really want you guys to remember, no matter what's going on with your day, that these videos are here for you, and that there are others out there that can help you too. So I just really want you guys to remember to love, breathe, and game.